Get ready before life happens. The podcast helping you navigate life's what ifs.
Welcome to Before Life Happens podcast, helping you navigate life's biggest what ifs and exploring how we can use money as a force for good. I'm Faith Teope, and today we're turning the tables and putting the show's true host, Tony Steuer, on the hot seat to hear what he has observed over 250 interviews. Tony, thank you for being on your show. It's so nice to have you.
It's great to be here on my own show. And Faith, thank you so much for hosting.
Yes, this is a milestone episode. It's a great honor. Well,
Yeah,
I'm going to come in hot with this though. But I am so excited because 250 episodes means that you have listened to so many conversations. How are you feeling about that?
I'm feeling it's a little bit overwhelming to think about that it's actually been 250 episodes. It doesn't feel like it's been that many. I think the thing is that I feel most fortunate about is that there have been 250 people who've actually wanted to come on the show. And and they're all amazing people. I've been so fortunate to have had so many amazing people with so many diverse viewpoints and just innovative things that they're working on come on the show to share what they're up to.
Yes, and you've always been so curious and asking all these probing questions to all the people that you've brought onto your show. And so it's a warm environment for everyone to come in and listen and feel validated. And I have to say, you are reaching so many people. And I think sometimes it can be so easy when we're just, grinding away to not really realize how great and expansive our impact is. And you have reached over 120 countries and thousands upon thousands of listeners. I mean, that has to sink in at some point.
It does, and I'm just amazed, especially at the number of countries that I've reached. Is that's the thing that I continually come back to. Now, I've had on a lot of guests from around the world, but nowhere near guests from 122 different countries. I mean, there's countries that I wasn't even sure they were a country. So, when I looked at the list of countries, and there's only 196 countries in the world. I was curious, so I Googled that, so I was curious. So it's like, it's great, but what it really means is that there is an interest around the world in changing the way we think about money, which is really one of the driving factors of the show is that, it's about mindset. It's not about product. It's about rethinking our relationship with money. And the curiosity part, and partially a big reason why I asked you to be the host, and I always love collaborating with you, is your old show where 401k experts get curious, is that was such an inspiration to me, is that curiosity component, because I think that's the key is we need to help people be curious about their money.
Mm, I love that. And you have done such an incredible job of doing that. There has never been points where there's judgment or this is how we need to. It's a curiosity. How can we look at this or how can we apply these different concepts? And just the fact that are reaching over 120 countries tells us very clearly that your messages that are being brought through your podcast episodes are translating across the different cultures. So we're not just talking specific US money here or US tools like just the 401k. You're talking about concepts that are touching people's lives in all different sorts of, situations and lifestyles and habits. Now, I know that you did recently rebrand, and I do want to talk about that. You've stayed with the get ready concept the whole way through. Now you have before life happens. Now, I know you're not a fearmonger. So tell me, what's the mentality behind this nomenclature?
Well, it's a partial change. So the original name of the podcast was the Get Ready Money Podcast, and it's now Get Ready Before Life Happens. And so I've still kept that Get Ready component, but I wanted to be really clear to reflect on my insurance background. And this gets into the new project that I'm launching this year, is that we need to be prepared before life happens. And that's really a reflection of time I spent as a wilderness first responder and being an outdoors whitewater raft guide, is that it's always about being prepared. And that's really what money allows us to do. It's to be prepared for different things. And as you talk about, people around the world, is one of the reasons I think my messages resonate is because I'm not talking about products and services. I'm talking about humans and the things, our money experiences, our money stories, where we want to go with our life journey, because money is simply a tool that allows us to do certain things. And that's all it is.
Oh, that's so interesting. I think, touching on vision and being prepared for things, you have a different perspective, a different angle on that, because I think in normal financial education, it's kind of you have to have an emergency fund. You don't know if you'll have to go to the hospital, or you need to have an emergency fund. You don't know if your car is going to break down. But your angle is a little bit different. It feels a little bit more like you're the boss of your life. You're at some command center. If you're saying, well, I want to be ready like a white rafter, or like a first responder for any situation that comes my way, that feels a little bit more exciting. Where do you feel people most get caught off guard when it comes to those life situations that call upon the money resources?
Well, I think it's just preparation, is that it's being able to improvise and roll with, what life throws at you. And I think that's a different way of thinking, is that we've been taught with money to think about products
Mm.
rather than to think about outcomes. And, as I've shared with you, and people are going to see me rolling out this year, is more tools that are based around the first aid concept and how doctors approach things. So if you think about it, when you go to see your doctor doesn't walk in and say, "Hey, Faith, it's great to see you today. Let's talk about your knee replacement." You know, you you'd be like pretty shocked and you'd be out to find a new doctor. But that's the financial services world. It's like, "Hey, Faith, it's great to see you. Have I told you about this variable annuity?" And knowing nothing about you, knowing nothing about your goals, and not even caring. And it's kind of that mismatch towards being prepared, is because when you think about being prepared, is you prepare for the thing that you're about to do. So, for example, if you're traveling to Jamaica for a week, you're going to pack maybe clothes to wear in the sun, things like that. But if you're traveling to Canada at this time of year, you're going to pack snow clothes and things like that, stuff to keep you warm. And so it's kind of the same thing, is you have to think about where you're going. And that's that first aid outdoor guide mentality. It's like, prepare for the environment that you're going to be part of, rather than just what everybody is giving you a standard list.
Ah, yes. So from a financial expert's perspective, or financial professionals who might talk in that way, because it's like, oh, I didn't even know I was going to need a knee replacement kind of situation.
Yeah.
On the people side of things, are there patterns that you keep seeing, things that people keep talking about when it comes to money and being prepared?
So on the show, is some of the common themes are just well, a big theme around the world is that people don't feel comfortable talking about money. And that's like one of the biggest things, is they don't want to talk about money. They don't want to think about it. They don't think that they can do money. So that's the recurring theme, is that there are so many people, and we can talk about, gender bias, and, people color and how they've been disadvantaged in the US system and all those things. But there's so many people who don't feel that the financial world is for them. And that's probably one of the biggest things, is having those conversations around money.
Why do you think they're so disengaged from the money
Uh,
conversation?
well, I think it's exactly those things, is that they don't feel that the money world is for them. Is so when you think of the financial world, it's not constructed for women, for example. And so that's come through. People who've been listening to my show know this from so many of my guests who've talked about this ad infinitum. Is, if you think about it with women, is they earn less. So there's a gender pay gap. there's a pink tax. Women pay more for their financial products. They live longer, so they have a longer life expectancy, so they need more money in retirement. And they are more likely to be caregivers, so they have years out of the workforce. So you're asking a woman to save the same amount of money as a man, but she doesn't have that opportunity. And she's got to make the money last for a longer period of time. So how is that an even playing field? It's a structural disadvantage and an expectation. So a lot of women check out of the traditional financial world is because they're like, this isn't for me.
I
It doesn't resonate with who I am.
And that I hear that loud and clear. I feel like you've already had episodes on these topics, but you're opening up a can of worms for me. I'm wanting to dive more into
Yeah, go for it. Let's go for it.
but I am curious though, as you're saying these things, I mean, I can hear all of the experience that you've gleaned from having these various conversations. And I mean, we have recorded 250 episodes. Sure, you've talked to that many people, but I know you've had countless conversations outside of a recording studio. Um, what what do you see differently now than from when you first started that show? Are these still the same messages and sounds that you're hearing over the decades, or are you seeing anything different?
I'm seeing more of a recognition that these are real issues. I still think it's a small percentage of the people who recognize that these are real issues, but I think there's more of a movement. We're seeing the financial therapy movement growing a little bit. We're seeing more people talking about money mindset. Um, and we're seeing recognition that generational wealth is an issue, and that these gender issues are real. And the big thing as well that's tied into that is a caregiving issue, because that is getting to be a significant issue for women, especially.
Well, I want to ask you the over 250 episodes, what outcomes or situations have stopped you in your tracks? It sounds like the gender issue is one of them.
It's a big one, but the one that really got me was a conversation with Fong Long, and she brought up the fact that somebody who's born in a home where there's one working parent, they don't have a lot of money, the mom is working full time, the older kid is taking care of the younger kid. They don't have access to good food at home. They don't have access necessarily, sometimes even to great drinking water. And all these things is that kid is at a disadvantage to their peers who come from a wealthy neighborhood, who may have a tutor, always has food on the table, who doesn't take care of their sibling. That there is a structural disadvantage here that is very real. And my conversation with her is, I think she changed the whole trajectory of my outlook for the show and how I think about these things.
Oh, in what way?
Well, just by pointing that out is I'd never really thought about that, is that, is that we take for granted the life circumstances we grow up with. And it's easy to think that everybody grew up like we did, is, that's just human nature. So to think that, down the block, that same person is, if they had to take care of their sibling after school, then maybe they didn't have as much time to study, which means that their grades may have been lower, which means that they may not have been able to get into the same college, which means that they may have started at a job earning less money. So you can see how the ripple effect works through. And if they're a person of color, maybe they've had a harder time getting a bank loan at the same interest rate. So you can see that these things have the ripple effect. And I think that was probably the biggest eye opener for me, was just like that these things aren't in isolation. They really build up through a person's life, and that has a dramatic impact on their wealth. It has a dramatic impact on how much money they earn through the career, that it's not a one isolated thing. It's that it impacts their whole life.
I always find it very fascinating to talk about money in such a holistic idea also, because it's not always just our situations, but it's how our situations impact us emotionally and psychologically, which is a component that so many financial experts completely exclude, at least the financial professionals of old. I feel like times are starting to change, but maybe I'm in the financial literacy advocacy world, but there are more and more people starting to talk about that the emotional and psychological impact in our, I mean, you talk about money mindset all the time. I I wonder sometimes with those different situations how we can reach people more, because I think that it's not always just our situations, but it's what we understand of how we can what we can do with those. So a lot of times I think that we think the social injustice is that some people are not born with enough money, but really I think it's we have different information at our fingertips. And some people have more of those money conversations at home. Some people have zero money conversations at home. So I think that there's a lot there at play. And I feel like yet another podcast episode I'd love to hear from. Um, was was there any episode, I'm curious, that you thought, wow, this confirms my theory? Did you have a theory that you were kind of really solidified after hearing an episode or listening to a guest?
I think it's just kind of come together is, I've had so many people talk about these issues, but yeah, the episode with Fong Long is really, that she really changed my perspective on these things, and again, she was talking more about some of these background issues, but that it's been a culmination of my other guests who've, like yourself, who've talked about, you know, how you talk about money, what money was like in your household growing up, um, your relationship with money. And pretty much every woman I've had on the podcast who's talked about shame and judgment with money. So I can't think of a specific guest because so many women have said the same thing about shame and judgment with money. But that's probably the biggest thing I think that makes money so challenging for people is that they feel shame in dealing with their money because they're not budgeting like they should be, or they're not doing this, or they're not doing that. And then somebody like Dave Ramsey will yell at them for not doing it.
Never
And
enough.
it's like, that's totally, it doesn't work for a lot of people. So I think that's really it, is that it's that, we have to recognize that money, we have a lot of emotions around money. And
Mhm.
then until we think about those emotions and we give space to them, we can't make different choices.
Mm. When you listen to guests like Bao Long, did you feel so frustrated?
Yeah, I get a little angry sometimes because it's like I don't get, how people do certain things is, I've heard so many women on the podcast talking about, how 70 to 80% of widows will leave their current financial planner just for the very simple reason that they don't feel seen or heard or
Mm.
included in the conversations. I've talked to so many female CFPs who've gone off to start their own firms because they didn't feel like they were part of the team at their financial planning firm. So, it's just, it's a theme that you hear over and over again, is that, we need to see and hear and listen. And I think that's the biggest thing in financial services is that we miss, is that we should be listening instead of talking.
Mm. Do you think that there is change coming in that regard, or is this just a hope, dream, and wish?
It's coming, and I think the mainstream financial services is missing out on a lot of it because a lot of women are checking out of the traditional financial advisory business and they're becoming financial coaches, they're becoming financial therapists, and they're working with their clients in a completely different way. And I think with the age of AI can create a financial plan. Yeah, maybe it's as good as a financial planner's financial plan, but financial planners use planning software anyway. So, AI can run an e-money report just as well as a human can. And so the question is, going to the future is what is going to be human. And women have already moved to being more human in the process.
Mm.
And, it's a changing thing.
Yeah. So I'm curious how else you can see AI playing into it because a lot of times I love to play with AI and there are certain walls that it hits and it seems like it might be about the types of questions that we know to ask it to get it to produce a little bit more refined content, um, a little bit more polished answers or, kind of tweak what they've already answered. How do you feel about AI, the normies using AI to help them with their finances?
I think it's like anything, you don't know what you're going to get. I think the thing we have to remember with AI is that we've created an alien intelligence and we don't know its motivations. There's so much that AI people don't know about the AI that they've created. So I think it's like anything is you don't know what you're going to get, but the same thing's true. You could talk to five different human financial advisors and get five different plan recommendations. So it's again, it comes down to the same thing is that the person using AI has to be curious.
Mm.
They have to be willing to ask questions, but they have to think for themselves and to think about what they want. And I think one of the things about AI is it's not going to judge you.
Mm.
Maybe Grok will, but you know, we don't need to go there for this show. Um, so people watching and listening, my apologies. Um, but I think, that AI is going to have a different relationship with people, that nothing can replace the listening that we do as humans and the connections that we have as humans. And that's the big difference is that if you're not listening to the people that you're working with, is yeah, you're going to be replaced by AI, I think, pretty quickly.
Mm. That is a cautionary tale.
It's just my guess.
Well, I think that should be a wake up call for people who are in the financial advisory space, because the listening is going to, like you said, make such a big difference in the way that they're serving their people. The ability to be curious and hear the right things that the people are saying will be different than if somebody's just plugging away, typing something to AI. They'll get answers, but only a human could really listen to all the things or ask the right questions to really draw something out of someone. And that's the opportunity that they might be missing.
Exactly. And that's where it gets into the alien intelligence is AI's brain works in a different way. I guess it's a neural network. And now we're getting to the edge of my understanding of AI, but it works different than a human's neural network
Mm.
and how we process things and everything else. And so it is different. And it's like where sometimes we feel instinctually connected to certain people. It's because we can develop a relationship. And I think that's the key is that, some people are developing relationships with AI. Most of them are unhealthy relationships, at least at this point. So we don't know how AI is going to evolve, but that's really the key, I think, as people in financial services. It's that trend to people who are already thinking as coaches, as therapists, as people who are supporting their clients on their journey rather than just strictly telling them what to do. I think that age is over.
Yes. I love to hear that. Okay, that's exciting to hear from you. Now, what do you think that you've noticed, or what have you seen that people are accidentally, maybe, or intentionally optimizing something that doesn't actually improve their money readiness?
I think people waste a lot of time on a lot of their stuff when it comes to money, is they miss the very basics. Is they don't have a good risk management program in terms of the insurance policies that they have. Is they don't think about the risks that they actually have and then buying the insurance to protect against those risks. Now I come from the insurance world, so that's something I've seen. I think the other thing too is that people don't go back and review various financial services and products is there's so many things we put on autopilot that we don't go back and redo. It's like I used to do open enrollment when I first started out for employee benefits. And so many people would just say, I just want the same thing I had last year. Well, has anything changed? It doesn't matter. I'll just take the same thing I had last year. And so if we think back, that's the common way, our common reaction with when it comes to money things is to just do the same thing we did. We renew their insurance policies year after year. We keep, uh, making contributions to the same IRA. We don't reallocate our funds, that we tend to not go back and review things. The other thing that I think people do is they look at things in isolation. They ask the question of whether they should buy a product or not, rather than saying, okay, this is my plan. What is the right product that's going to help me achieve my goals?
Okay, this is so overwhelming though. I mean, if I think of something very small like um, orthodontics, and this is a real situation of a friend, but you have your dental insurance, and then you have to by a certain date make sure that you update it to include orthodontics for your child, and then you miss that mark. How are you supposed to keep all of these things on the calendar when you're barely keeping up with, is it Monday or is it Wednesday? Do we have early release? All these different things that are going through our head, whether we have kids or not. There's so much going through our head. What is your approach to helping people revisit the things that they need to pay attention to? And I say need cautiously because I don't really like using patriarchal terms like, you have to have um, that to help people understand why they want to have this on their plate and why they need to rethink about it, whatever they've already set up. Why is it important to them to change their allocations? Or why is it important for them to revisit? Whatever, you get what I'm saying. What's your approach? What do you think?
Well, that's why I created the Get Ready Blueprint, and which is a 52-week guide to changing the way you think about money. And so it's a weekly action item, around 12 areas, 12 months, and to help people review those different areas. I created the financial calendar. And so to help people go through and review all the different areas of their financial lives, like including changing the beneficiaries or checking the beneficiary on your retirement programs, is I can't tell you how many times I saw an ex-spouse as a beneficiary on a life insurance policy. It happens. And it's just simply because, like you said, it's like, how can we keep track of all these things? But then we get distracted by the next shiny object because everybody's talking about Bitcoin and crypto. Should I do crypto? Should I do Bitcoin? Should I invest in AI? But that's not really the right question. The right question is like, am I on track to save enough money for retirement? That's really the right question. Am I on track to have the life I want to lead?
Mm.
And do I have the right investments to support that? And, impact investing. Am I investing with my values? So there's this whole different way of thinking about your money and making your money work for you, but reviewing these things.
Yes. What are questions that you don't people hear people ask, but you really think they should be asking?
Oh boy, that's a good one. Just offhand, well, I mean, there's tons of them, but I think just asking questions. I don't think people ask enough questions about their money. So let's go back to crypto. Everybody's like, should I buy crypto or not? But that's not really the right question. The question is, do I need crypto?
Mm.
Let's think about it. If you're going to make a recipe, so let's say you go to the grocery store and, you're going to make a lasagna for dinner. Are you going to buy a ham? Are you going to look at the ham and go, should I buy this ham? Yes or no? You're not even going to think about buying the ham because unless you have a very different recipe for lasagna than I do, you're not going to put a ham in lasagna. You're going to look for the ingredients to make lasagna. And we don't think about that with our financial life because we ask that question is like, should I buy crypto? Instead, you should be saying, well, I'm trying to bake a lasagna. What's going to help me, you know, bake my lasagna. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm hungry. You know,
Well, now I am.
for lasagna.
Yeah. Well, you're so good about probing people to think and evaluate how they might need to change the way that they think about money. How has hosting this podcast changed you?
It's really opened my eyes to really recognize one, that these are global issues
Mm.
and that things are really different for everybody. Just how vastly different they are. When you think that people come from similar circumstances, they don't. Everybody's journey is different. Everybody's goals are different. Everybody's values are different. And we all should have a personalized journey.
Mm. I love that. Now, keeping in mind that you do have a global audience, what do you hope listeners take with them after episode 250?
Just to continue to ask questions, to be curious about your money, and that anybody can do money. It's open to anyone, but you have to be willing to take the time to learn and to be curious.
If they're wanting to make that first shift in their thinking, then, um, but they feel overwhelmed to start, how would you encourage them?
Just to take a deep breath, and you can listen to my podcast, check out some of my guests and the work that they put out. I've had a ton of amazing people from around the world on this podcast. So what I've tried to do with my podcast is to have on a very diverse group of guests. So find somebody who resonates with you. If you're a woman, you may resonate better with a woman. If you're, I've had on somebody from India, you know, that maybe my guest from India might be somebody that might resonate better with you because of the cultural issues. So, that's the thing, is find somebody who knows about money, but who resonates with you culturally.
Mm. Well, I appreciate all the work that you do. I feel like the work that you do is such a mission field. You're on such a mission field, just trying to help people. Um, is this the heart of the Get Ready movement?
It is. The heart of the Get Ready movement is about changing the way we think about money and helping people be prepared. Is that I think, together we can make change. And that's what I want to do. Is I want to be part of this. I want to leave a legacy. I want to make an impact and leave this world better.
Oh, kids, we call that a mic drop. Tony, this was a pleasure interviewing you, especially for this milestone episode. This is incredible.
Well, thanks, Faith. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And to all of you listening or watching, thank you for tuning in to this special episode of the Before Life Happens podcast. If you learned something today that changed the way you think about money in your financial journey, please subscribe and share with a friend. And you can also go to Tony's website at tonysteuer.com to join the Get Ready movement and receive his newsletter. Until next time, as Tony always says, let's change the way we think about money.